Hello, everyone. I hope you are having an amazing day wherever you are. Things are kind of getting a little more tense by the day out there, so I hope you're not getting too stressed out about it. It's strange how, even in this time of lockdown, it feels like I'm kind of busier and busier, getting more things to focus on. And the reason I bring that up is because I wanted to let you guys know. No one else knows this yet. Well, actually, I think he posted something about it on his Instagram page. But tonight at 8 o'clock, I'm going to start doing a podcast with Kevin Wilson. Kevin Wilson, for those of you who've been with me from the very beginning since I got out of prison, he used to be the manager of the very first tattoo shop that I started going to here in the city called Sacred. Uh, he was he was pretty much the first friend I ever made out of prison. He was my sort of guide in a lot of ways to being, reintroduced back out into the world. We used to do all kinds of stuff together all the time, had constant adventures. And we started kicking this idea of doing a podcast around a couple of weeks ago. So it's coming together really fast. Tonight, we're going to have two other guys doing it with us. One is a New York firefighter that we've known for at least a couple of years, maybe a little longer. And Randy Blythe, the lead singer of Lamb of God, if you are a metal fan. They're going to be doing it with us tonight. And since we're all in lockdown, we're going to do it as, over the, what do you call it, Zoom, over Zoom. So I think Kevin is going to even put it up on YouTube afterwards, so you'll be able to see us while you're listening to it. Some people I don't think it adds a great deal personally, but you never know. Just being able to see it. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, you'll notice this morning I posted a piece in the writing for our writing of the day about Layla Waddell, who was a apprentice of Crowley's. They did a ton of stuff together, because you've already seen the piece from this morning. But the reason I posted that, I thought what I would do is maybe do just a tiny bit of kind of a who's who or where's where of magic while we're going through the alchemical process. Some days we're just waiting. While we're going through the alchemical process, there are times when all you do is wait for one process to turn into the next, and that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're in the 40-day waiting period before we start the next step. And in that time, I thought, well, what else could I do to sort of, keep people entertained while they're locked down in their house? Something that even people who aren't doing magic may find interesting. So I thought, well, I'll give kind of a history of the people and places and orders and all that sort of thing. Because some of that stuff is, to me at least, is incredibly interesting. And I wanted to do start with people other than like Aleister Crowley, because everybody knows who he is. Or Dion Fortune, because everybody knows who she is. Their work really sort of infiltrated the mainstream, or at least the mainstream of magic. So I wanted to focus a little more on people who hadn't done that, introduce people to new concepts, new personalities, new practices, whatever it is, while we're waiting. So I thought one of the things I would describe to you today is another practice. And this practice was given to me by, I wrote several things last week about an alchemist that I used to meet with regularly. Well, one time, I talked also about how his apprentice was the bartender at the bar where we used to go and have conversations. But one time we went to a Russian bathhouse. And if you've never been to a Russian bathhouse, it's kind of an amazing place. Here in the city, the one that I go to, for example, it has a hot wet room, which is a room that's about 140, 150 degrees, and it's filled with eucalyptus steam. So whenever you walk into this room, it's really good for your lungs, opens your lungs up and helps you to breathe. When you walk into this eucalyptus room, the fog is so thick that you can't even see around you. It takes you a few minutes to even figure out if there's anybody else in the room with you or not. Another thing they have is a hot dry room, and this room gets up to I want to say like 180 degrees, but it's more like a pizza oven. Like there's no water, no vapor in the air, no eucalyptus, no anything. It's like just a hot ass, it's like being in the desert somewhere. One wall is just this giant stone wall, and there's something in the middle of the wall that looks like a pizza oven. And that's where the heat's coming from, and there's rows of wooden bleachers that you sit on. You have to sit on a towel. You can't sit directly on the bleachers, or sometimes it gets so hot, or the seating things, it gets so hot that it'll burn your legs even though they're made out of wood. What else? Oh, then they have a freezer room. The point of going to a Russian bathhouse is to shock your system. So you go from really hot to really cold, really hot to really cold. Like you would go into the, say for example, you go first into the wet room, which is the eucalyptus room. And then you come out and they have a pond. It's a little like pool in the middle of the floor that's probably 5 feet by 5 feet, and it's filled with water that's just like a couple of degrees above freezing. So what you're supposed to do is go into the eucalyptus room, stay in there until you can't take it anymore, and then run out and jump into the ice pond. So it shocks you. You get shocked with the heat and then shocked with the cold. And then you go into the wet or into the dry room, though that's like a pizza oven, and you sit in there until you can't take the heat anymore, and then you come out and you go into a freezer room. It's literally a freezer. You walk into this glass booth and close the door, and it's like you are sitting in a deep freeze where they would house or keep meat or something. Anyway, we used to go there sometimes every now and then, and while we were there, he gave me this practice. It's based on the middle pillar, but instead of the 5 energy centers that you use running down the middle of your body, you only use 2. You use the white one at the top of your head, which is Kether, and you use the black one, which surrounds your feet. And you know how when you're doing the middle pillar, you circulate energy. Like as you exhale, the light will go down one side to your feet, and then as you inhale, you pull it back up the right side, and then go down the front and up the back. Well, instead of doing that, with this practice, what you do is every time you inhale, you see the black sphere at your feet come up the right side of your body and merge with the white sphere at the top of your head. And then as you exhale, it goes down your left side back down to your feet. And then you inhale again and keep bringing it up. You merge it with the white over and over. The thing is, when you first start the practice off, you visualize the sphere at your feet as black. With every round it makes, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. Because what you are doing is purifying the earthly with the spiritual. You are constantly sending the earthly up into heaven and then bringing it back down. And every time you do that, it is a little more sacred, a little more holy. There is a little more divinity within it. So eventually you know the practice is over when you have a white sphere at your head and a white sphere at your feet. It is the same thing you're doing when you're doing alchemy and you start to evaporate and recondense the water, go through the distillation process. You are sending the water up into or the alcohol up into the immaterial and then bringing it back down into the material. That's sort of the same thing you're doing with this meditation. Okay guys, I hope you are all safe, that you are well, and thank you so much for sticking with me in this really trying time. I appreciate you more than I could ever say. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.